We're now going to proceed to build the router using this path attribute of the URL that comes from the request. So to do this, we can actually start off relatively simple. We can just use an if statement. So we can do something like if r.url.path is equal to the just empty /path, then we can say we want to use the home handler. And if we wanted, we could also add an else if r.url.path is equal to contact. Then we're going to go ahead and say we want the contact handler. And then otherwise, we're going to go ahead and just get rid of that extra bit of code. We're going to save this. And now we can start up our code to see how that works. So we can go run. And then we will come over here, load the localhost. We'll see that the home page works correctly. The contact page works correctly. And if we put any other page, we get an empty page. So what's happening here is that this first if block happens if it's the empty path. The else if will happen if it's the contact path. Otherwise, nothing runs. So we don't end up writing anything to the response writer, and that just gets us an empty page back. So what might make sense is to add a case for if that happens. There's a couple ways to do this. One of them could be to add return statements to each of these ifs. And then outside of the ifs, we could put something like handle the page not found error. We could do that here. We have to add returns to all these, and it ends up just being a little bit more work. So what I would probably suggest, especially when you start to get to multiple cases, instead of having just a bunch of else ifs, is to use a switch statement. So we're going to do switch r.url.path. And if you've never used a switch, this is kind of like an if statement with a bunch of cases that we can type in here as the cases. So we'll say if it's the empty path, we're going to do home handler. And if it's the contact path, we're going to do contact handler. And then we're going to add the default case, which is going to happen if none of these other cases happen. And we're going to say here that we're going to handle the page not found error. So for now, I'm going to make this a to-do. What I would suggest is if you have some time, I would definitely try to do this as an exercise. Explore the docs and try to look at what a page not found error might look like. If you're looking for if you just want to go look on your own, you can stop this video now. But actually, let me take that back. Let's clean up the rest of this code and then I'll let you do that. So now, if you have code matching this, you can stop the video. If you want to just try to figure this out on your own. Now, if you're looking for some hints, the first one I would say is to look up status codes and to see if you can find one that represents a page not found error. The next hint I would suggest is to look in the HTTP package and to start looking for constants that might describe some of those status codes, as well as any functions that might help you render errors. So if you go to the HTTP Golang docs, you're going to look in here for anything that might help you out. So there's constants we can start looking through to see if any of those might be useful. You can also look to see if there's any functions here that might be useful for errors of some sort. And that's not the only way to do it, but I'm just suggesting those as options because they're probably the first ones you'll want to learn how to use. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit more about this URL and path because I want to explain the difference between raw path and some of the encoding stuff. But then after that, we'll come back and we'll look at this error page stuff. So if you want to do it as an exercise, I highly recommend giving it a shot. But then we'll go ahead and do it in a future video.